1951, and they said, I thought, well, I was ready to go then. Said, oh, you don't go now. Says, you go home and stay, and we'll call you right after the first of the year, and they did. And we went down there, and they swore sitting on the stage, and had the beauty of this town, get on up there with us, and it was a big deal, and it was a real gung-ho type thing, and they showed us a big movie about Sans Iwo Jima, I believe that was the name of it. It was very popular during that 40s and 50s, and we were really gung-ho, ready to go, and we go catch the train up there at the train station, and all of us together, the Houston platoon, they gave us the flag, it said Houston. Red flag with a big letter to Houston. We were so proud of that. And this guy, whose brother had just gotten back from the line up there on the Chosun Reservoir, was in the Marines, and we made him our right guide, which is the fellow that you line up on the right guide. You all know what I'm talking about, don't you? Don't they still say right guide?
Yes.
It's in front of the platoon when they march. You follow the right guide up there. But anyway, we had got sworn in and everything. We caught the train and went out there, and a couple of the guys fought all night long, and we were wrestling and tussling with one another, going out there. The next day, we passed through a little West Texas town, and I don't know whether it was Odessa, one of them that train goes through out there, and they said, we're going to have about a 15, 20-minute break, and you boys can get off and get a Coke, anything you want to, or read the magazine. We got there, and I was looking at those magazines and everything, me and this buddy of mine, and in the train, we heard the train whistle go, ooh, ooh. And I was trying to look. I said, no, he said, come on, let's go. They're going to leave us. I said, I ain't going to leave me just a minute here. Let me get this book. Well, they're going to leave me. I'm going to go get on there. I go get on there. I'm not getting on there right now. I'm going to read this magazine here, and I'll be on. That's what I want, I think. And, of course, I didn't think anything about it, but they didn't want to wait on me. And so, anyway, I go out there. They did wait on me, unfortunately for me. But when I got out there at San Diego, getting back to your blues deal, he says, well, I guess you boys joined the United States Marine Corps so you can wear a fine set of those little blues that we've got. When we issue you one, you'll be in a pine box. That's the first thing. And by the way, who is this Force? It went AWOL on us. I thought, oh, God. Step forward. Well, you like to sit out there and read things a lot, do you? Okay, well, you come over here and see that up there on the wall. I want you to stand out here at attention, and he had to show me what at attention was, and read that. And you keep on reading it till I tell you to quit reading it. Standing out there and read that and read it, and everybody in there called me AWOL, and that name lived with me. Those guys worried me to death. They always, that's the only thing. I said, where'd you go AWOL? At the train station out there at Santa Fe or Odessa somewhere. I don't know where we were. But anyway, we went on through boot camp. Boot camp's an interesting place. It sure is. You'll enjoy. You haven't been through boot camp. You've been out there. Have you been to Dago or Paris Island?
I don't think they have yet.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't think they have, no.
Oh, yeah, they still have it.
Do they?
Yeah, they still have boot camp. I'm sure they do. Well, they did in Paris Island.
Yeah, right. But I'm saying I've never been there, and I don't know if they've actually.
Well, it'd be great
been
to go there. My son was in the Marines, incidentally. I didn't know because I wanted him to go in there because I told him to stay out of there. I said, don't go in the Marines here. Wait a minute, you can go in the Air Force and you get by a lot easier, But I wouldn't take anything for being in the Marines. And I didn't tell him that. And I was buying oil and gas leases down there in South Texas. I was home one weekend. My son told me that he'd been talking to a Marine recruiter. I said, you what? He said, I've been talking to a Marine recruiter. I want him to stay in school. And, of course, these kids, when they're teenagers, are hard to keep in school, and you don't want them to have anything to do with anything else but the school. I said, you forget about that, Steve. You got plenty of time to talk to a Marine Corps recruiter there. Don't you spy nothing with him. He came in next weekend. He said, guess what, Dad? I said, what? He said, I signed up in the Marine Corps. You did, really? Well, that's, I'll tell you, if you want to do it, that's all right with me, And sure enough, they picked him up, and he wound up out there, too. You can't teach one or another anything from the next. They're going to be just about like you. And but anyway, he had.
Was your son? Well. Was your son also Korea as well? Was he?
No. That's way after. That's in the 70s.
Okay.
But maybe the first 80s. I think. When did they have Grenada down there?
That would have been like late 70s and the 80s. Mm-hmm.
Well, he and, you know, one of those Bird boys were good friends of his. You know, his grandmother had that big old house out there at Northwestern Highway and Central Express.
Okay.
They used to go there all the time. And his wife, Bird's wife, mother called me and said, "What'd you get those boys into going to the Marine Corps? Don't you know we don't?" Let's see, what was his name? I've forgotten what it was now, but anyway, his last name is Bird. And I said, said, "I don't know what I'm going to do." I said, "I didn't make them do anything." I said, "They do whatever they want to. He's been riding bulls, you know. If you want to go to school, he's going to do this, that, and the other." And I said, "Well, you let them do what they want to when they get that old." But she fell out with me on that.
Disagree
And
with you
I
on
can't
that one.
remember. But anyway, it's so many things happen. But you're only interviewing me. I'm not supposed to be interviewing you.
No, that's what we love it. We love it. Just getting the camera roll. We knew that we were in the right place with having you here today, Burt. So we want to introduce.
I'm just passionately in love with you. Tell your husband I come up here. You're lucky to have her. I'll tell you, she's a fine
so
lady.
Sweet.
She
You're
sure
so
is.
sweet. You're too kind.
Yeah.
Well, we want to start off the interview with introducing ourselves for the record. I'm Dawn Blake, a U.S. history teacher here at Allen High School.
I'm Jacob Chesney.
Tucker? Is it Tucker?
Jacob Chesney.
Yes, Jacob Chesney. Jacob Chesney from
right, okay,
Marine JROTC.
Okay,
and we
great.
also have
Jacob Bender, also JROTC,
Okay.
second year cadet.
at the interview.
I'm a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps JROTC here.
All right. Yeah. So just telling you a little bit about who they are. So
Yeah, well, that's good.
yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and start the interview by starting out with a couple of questions about your social life. Stop that. Okay, PG rated.
See part of it.
We'll talk a little bit about your early life. Then we'll talk about some military basics, and we'll also talk about your combat as well as after the war. So that's just kind of the breakdown. But at any point, Burt, that you have any information, this is no bars. No holding anything. We want you to share your entire experience about everything, okay? So this is non-filtered, completely raw, giving you an opportunity to be able to say anything you want to. But we're going to start out with a couple of basics just to get some background information on you. So go ahead, Jacob.
All right. So I know your name is Burt Forse, but what's your full name?
John B. Forse. John Burton. Burton is a family name. They named me also after my grandfather, who's was judge in Orange County, Texas. He's originally from Sabine County, but he helped settle that area when they first brought in the Spindletop down there by having all the shootouts and that type of thing. And then, of course, East Texas was worse than that. Yeah, of course, that's going way back in the 20s, People would, it was something. It was a bad time with people like him. And there is a resolution in each county in that particular district. I forget the district number. To him because he was one of the founders of the Texas Bar Association in that particular district.
Very
And
interesting.
he was an attorney, and my dad was an attorney also. His name was Wendell Forse. And but wasn't anything like my granddad, though.
When was he an attorney? Like around what years was he an attorney?
My dad was an attorney. He was an attorney, I guess, from 1920. He was district attorney over there for a while in Newton County, and then up until the 50s. And see, he didn't pass away till, I think 90s, 93, I think, is when he died.
Wow.
And he was almost 90 years old. My granddaddy was 93 and everything. But he was one of the original ones. You don't realize these times we're living in how fortunate you all are.
Yeah.
And but go ahead, let's get out of that area.
All right. So where and when were you born?
I was born in Jasper County, Texas, in the Hardy Hancock Hospital in 1930, December the 23rd.
And you live in Royce City currently?
Yes, sir. I live in Royce City. Lived in Dallas about 25 years before that.
Who are your siblings?
Stephen Jackson Forse and Catherine Denise Teal.
Did any of them serve in the military?
No. Steve lived over in Frisco, and my daughter lives out of Georgetown in a little town called, I don't know, it escapes me right now. have a senior bonnet. But anyway, she lives right out of Georgetown, one of those little towns.
Okay.
So what were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, I was going to Colorado University right directly before that. I was going to Stephen F. Austin. I was going there before I went to Colorado, and I had, as far as work, I wasn't, I worked at the Texas company and all the rest of the companies up and down the coast in the summertime, but I wasn't employed anywhere. I was a student. I signed myself in as a student on my discharge.
And how old were you? How old were you? How old were you?
How old was I when I went in?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was 19.
19. Okay.
And were you enlisted, or did you get drafted?
No, I joined. Yeah, I joined, and my dad wanted me to wait and go ahead and get a commission. Just go and said, you don't like much, because I didn't like much finishing college at the time. I was a senior or junior one. I've forgotten. Anyway, I had the hours and everything. I liked grade points, I think, because I didn't like to go to class too much. But anyway, I got through all right. I didn't necessarily need it. My life had been a lot easier on me if I would have been an officer than what I was, but no telling. But it would have been. I enjoyed it, so while I was in there. Okay.
What made you join the Marine Corps specifically?
Well, I had two friends that were, when I got back from Colorado University, and one of them was real close, Lord Edwin Adams there. He and I began school together, and we never were real good friends. We used to have fights and things like that, but we were buddies, you know what I mean? We played football together and all that, and he was linebacker, and he tried to scoop us up and everything, and I'd pick at him, and I don't know, and knew him real well. Now, Ray Davis was also killed over there, and he was from that little town. I'd heard when I got there, both of those boys had been killed over there at the Chosin Reservoir, not at the Chosin, but at the perimeter. They had pulled him back to the Pusan perimeter, and that's where he was killed. And but anyway, let's go ahead.
All right. What city was your basic training camp located, and what was the name of it?
Your basic. Where was basics? Where did
Basic
you train?
was in San Diego.
Okay.
And San Diego, California, yes.
Mm-hmm. And approximately how long were you there?
I believe it was 14 weeks,
Okay.
13 weeks. Now, we did not get any liberty at all until we had completed that. Now, every other service does, but we did not. And they told us that we didn't need it, that we were Marines and we didn't have to worry about liberty, that they would take care of that for us when due time. And they were always, the boot camp was something unreal, but I loved it, it's great.
What was your war jobs or specialty?
What was my what?
Your war job?
My war job, my combat rating was 0311, basic infantry. I was a Browning automatic rifleman. And well, what happened, we were supposed to go to rifle range there, and we got in a scuffle with somebody that broke my glasses, and I couldn't see the targets down there. I was shooting at, I could always shoot good. But him, I said, well, I ain't got no glasses. Well, they send me up there at Balboa to get some more glasses. I couldn't see nothing with those glasses. They got me. So I couldn't hit the target. One of them didn't hit the guy pulling the targets. But anyway, we got through that all right, and I got out. And the horror of boot camp is you don't want to get set back, or they'll keep you have to do it all over again. So
No.
Go ahead.
What city or camp did you fight in Korea?
What city or camp did you fight in Korea? Was it location that you when you were done with the basics and you were shipped to? Where did you first go to?
That's all right. First, I went over to. We landed at Pusan, and of course, I figured I'd be in the infantry because that's an advance. That's one of the best spec numbers you have for infantry, and I figured I'd be in the infantry. Well, I went in an item company. They call it item company. And we would say, you're going to be an item company, and they're going to come up here and they're going to draw each day how many men they need for what area, whether it be engineers or infantry or artilleryman or whatever. They'll come up here and they'll choose you they go down the line, they choose this was going to artillery, that was going to engineers or something, tanks or whatever. They didn't get the tanks though. And then the second day, practically everybody had already been chosen. I wasn't going to choose me. Well, they chose me when they got the tanks. They pointed me out. I said, "Oh my God, I don't know nothing about tanks." I said, "I've been with tank infantry training when I was going through boot camp, but I didn't know nothing about tanks." And Lord have mercy, they put me in those things, and it was a mess. For them.
Was it a mess in terms of like your describe what it was like to get into the tanks, what it was like being in the tanks.
Oh.
I mean, how many men did you have in the tanks? Just describe the conditions of being in there. I mean, stories that you have to share about getting in, getting out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, when I got there, of course, they were in reserve, and we were having a big time. We played football and everything else, but when we were going out on the firing, we were going to go out and do some practice with the 90s, and we were going to go out and fire. Well, they had me down as assistant driver first. They didn't have me as a low-ranking assistant driver. Well, I sit over in the assistant driver's seat. And when you sit in the assistant driver's seat, that hole is off because, you can't see. You got these little old glasses you're looking through, to see outside, but everything is, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. But anyway, went out there and they said, fire in the hole, and about that time, and I see fire back in the back of I said, what in the world? Has somebody hit our tank? Mm-hmm. And that thing rattles when that 90 goes off, and there I was down there, and that scared me to death. I never heard of anything like that. I didn't expect it. And of course, it tickled them. They knew they were initiating me. And they said, okay, mount that coax. Get on the coax I had. It was a manual machine gun up there. It's 30 caliber, on the right-hand side of the driver. And so they said, shoot out there, take your machine gun and shoot up there. And I started firing. You could see those tracers. They were going straight up. Oh. And I thought I was shooting like on the level, but I wasn't. I was shooting straight. Force, look at that. Lower those rounds down to the ground and walk it out is the way you shoot a machine gun. I'd never shot a machine gun so I pulled it down, pulled it up like this, and just started shooting like you're supposed to. But that was my first experience to be inside a tank, pulling the hatch down, and everything. Consequently, I'm not claustrophobic at all on anything.
You're lucky.
Yeah, right. But you have anyway. That's the Lord has looked after me to put me in tanks rather than infantry. Those poor devils. Of course, we lived like them a little bit in there when we got in the bunker, but they lived all the time in that bunker. Yeah. But anyway, that was my first experience there, and getting in and out of the tank. And but we used to work on that track and everything. We'd break it. But I never put a new track on. That's a pretty good job, I expect.
What's a track? Are you talking about the tracks
on the outside of the tank? Around,
yeah. Okay.
And you got 8 bogey wheels on that thing. Then they go around. And push it around. But we would break it back because that was what you did. If I would have been sharp, I could have been this guy really knew engines. Could be would have known everything about them because he was trying to teach me. And I don't know anything about that. I said, I'm not going to do that. And I said, but anyway, I did it, and we break the track down, and you roll the tank out and drive it forward enough, before it ran off, he'd stop me. He said, hit it right there. We'd have stopped right there, and then we break it loose, and we had to put the track back on. Show me what it would do, and all those things which I never had in schooling. And see, I wasn't in tanks, and to learn all these things, they tried to teach me everything they could, about emergency source to handle. But there's a lot of things that they can't teach you, like firing and things like that. And but I got pretty good with that 90. I could shoot it pretty good, and I had another thing about making me a gunner, but they said, no, he loads too well. We just gave him some loader on there. Yeah. But that's interesting. They did. The reason I moved from the assistant driver, which is wanted to make me driver of the tank, I'd rather run over the colonel, you know. I told you, you've heard me tell that story.
No, I
That's
actually
the one they like to
haven't.
hear, yeah.
I actually have heard that
Anyway,
one.
they sent me down there, and of course, I'd only been in tanks about a week or 10 days, and I'd had a little experience in the tank. So the colonel comes driving up in a Jeep, and he said, we're going to get rid of these M26s, and I'm going to go down and pick up an M46, and I'll need me a good driver. He says, I'll just get that man right there, you know. So, I said, yeah, you got to go back down to one, son, and pick up an M46, and you got to drive this other one. Well, I could drive it over M26, you know, you want to go to the left, you know, to the left, you pull the opposite way on that track,
Right.
you know, and you'd go there, you know, and I could drive that thing good. Well, I got down there, and this was a M46 he had, which is a diesel engine,
Uh-oh.
twin diesels, powerful thing. And it has a wobble stick. You don't have to worry about pulling these little sticks. However, if the oil pressure is not built up so high, you can't turn that tank. In other words, you know, as long as it's running pretty good little speed, you can turn the tank. But if it's not, if you just go real slow, it'll just walk forward. That's the only place it to go. Well, I get on there, and the colonel says, son, get in there and drive this tank up there and follow me and my driver in this Jeep. I said, yes, sir. But I don't think I can do that. Well, how come? He said, I never have driven the M46. It don't make any difference. He says, you can drive a car, can't you? I said, yes, sir. Well, you get in there and drive that thing right now. You better. I hopped up there, you know, and I got in the driver's seat, you know. You got to crank it up there, and I started forward with that thing, and I got the engine revved up enough so it would go forward, you know, and it go, and then I'd be going too fast. I think I'll slow down. And we started up this mountain, or a good sized hill was a mountain. Those hills about 7,000 feet over there, you know, they're not any shorties. And he said, come on, father, come on, now give it to gas. And I'd give it to gas, and finally I got to chugging along there pretty good with it, you know, and I was feeling pretty good, you know. Till we got to the top of the mountain, and the hill rather, and you know, there's a real sharp turn there. Mm-hmm. And I got to looking at that turn, and as closer I get, the slower it'd go. And I got up there so far with that tank, I couldn't turn it. I tried to turn it, it wouldn't turn. The thing won't turn. And the guy on the radio said, Forse, throw this thing in reverse, rev up the engine, and go on around there. Well, that's what I did. I threw it in reverse, went back. He said, now give it the gun and go on down this hill. Colonel run off and leaving us. Well, that's what I did. I took off and backed it up and went forward and gave enough gas for the oil to work around there, and you could turn it. And the colonel's up ahead of us in that Jeep. And all the time up a hill, he was going like this. When we were going down the hill, he went like, get back. Because when we were going up on the hill, he was throwing, you know, when I was trying to come up the hill, we was motioning to come on. It was just the opposite when we were going down.
Oh.
But anyway, that day they decided that I could probably do better than a turret up there. So anyway, I'm taking up an awful lot of your all's time.
No, you're not. No, you're not. This is exactly what we want.
Those guys would die laughing if they knew what I was doing. But anyway,
This is the whole point
especially
again.
Battle
just-
Rattle. I have to tell you, he was a great guy, our lieutenant.
Oh, his nickname was Battle Rattle?
Yeah, he was Lieutenant Battle. Well, Battle was his name.
Okay.
And his dad founded a law firm up there in Houston, New York City, which is not too far from that monument to
Right.
go down there. It's a real liberal firm, but he was kind of liberal too. But he was a great guy. He did, Ivy Leaguer. He did the whole bit there, and we got along real good.
That's
But,
awesome. Christine, go ahead and ask the next question.
What memories of your major experiences or battles or events do you recall?
What major experiences did you have during battle? You know, you described some of your events, positions that you were at. Any specific stories you want to share about your major battles in Korea?
Well, there was more patrols when I was over there. See, they had begun the talks, and we tried to take that little hill over there, or this little hill, and they'd come back and try to take it back and that type of thing. So there wasn't any big battles other than the Punch Bowl. The Punch Bowl was a battle. The Pork Chop Hill was a battle. That was just to the left of us. Bloody Ridge that was just to the left. But we were across the 38th parallel. We were north of it.
And this was when? About approximately
This
when?
is 19 and, let's see, October. So this would be about October. And first big Korean snow, as the guy said. But we left the Indian River and we went on up there to beyond One Son. And we were in about 3 miles of off the line, which it tells you, and I didn't, tells you in those traveling orders, and I couldn't find those. I didn't have time with everything else going on at the house. I didn't have time to get a hold of them. But those traveling orders indicate, that we're going to give you so much ammunition, a belt of ammunition, one C ration, and your emergency kit that you carry, when you go into battle. And I found one of my old dog tags that I had. I gave the other one to my son. I carried it up there, but anyway, I guess the major battle would be the Punch Bowl. Now, when they moved us off of that coast, which they did, we went back down there, and I've forgotten where we caught that LST. And I thought I was in heaven because we hadn't bathed in about 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we got on this ship, this LST, we put the tanks on, Then we went in there, the first thing we could smell that good coffee brewing, that Navy coffee. Had showers, of course. Anybody that's ever took a shower on one of those ships, it's all salt water anyway. You can't de-soap yourself all you want to. You're not going to get the soap. But because it won't lather hardly at all. But anyway, we got to take showers. A bunk too, with sheets. And, oh my Lord, this is great.
Oh my gosh, you thought you were in heaven.
And we were on there, this is a cruise ship. Yep, we're going to get a free cruise out of this too. So we start around, we're going to Incheon. And this is the second landing, which shall long be remembered when the first Marine. Nevertheless, it's not like the first one. But anyway, we're going around to Incheon and got in this storm. And this is mentioned in one of the books I've read, that what they call those big storms that come up at sea in that Yellow Sea. We were in the Yellow Sea at the time because when you cross that coast, you go through the south tip of Korea, you're in the Yellow Sea. And those are the worst storms and can come up quicker than any other storm. And it hit us, go ahead.
Are you talking about monsoons?
Hmm?
Monsoons?
No, monsoon's a land storm.
Right,
This
land
is a
storm.
sea storm.
Yeah, like a hurricane.
No, it's
hurricane
worse
storm.
than that. They call it something else. I forgot. They have a special name for it in that particular area because it's so bad.
Okay.
But we had monsoons over there on the ground, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're talking about, but this was at sea. Well, anyway, I woke up in the night and that thing was going back and forth, back and forth. In order to sleep, I hold myself in with this, this chain that was holding that bunk up, so I put my arm around that chain
Oh, wow.
and then rocked back and forth, and then I began to hear something, boom, boom. And those seas, the LST's flat bottom boats, so they can go in
Right.
close. And this tank, I didn't know it was a tank at the time, but one of the tanks had broken loose. They had broken the turnbuckles and was going back and forth, boom, boom, hitting the side of that LST every time it rolled back. And if it knocked the bottom out of that ship, I sure wouldn't be talking to you. And but anyway, because it was a bad sea. And we went on from there, and we went up to Incheon, and somebody woke me up that morning. Says, "Come on, you got to see this up front." I said, "Well, are we there?" I says, "What's this lady over like this for if we're there?"
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Yeah, we're there. Come up here. You just got to see this." And I went up there, and all the ships. There were 3 of us. I think three or maybe 4 LSTs carrying a tank division. What it had done, all the water had gone out of the port. There wasn't any water at all, just like letting the water out of the bathtub.
Oh.
You've never seen anything like it. When the tide goes out, it goes all the way out. It goes miles and miles out. Nothing you can see but black black dirt and all that, black clay. And we had
It
to wait
almost
till
sounds
the
like
tide
some-
came back in before we could go on in.
Yeah.
And that's what they faced when they were going in the first time, was that tide. But if they didn't catch it just right, you know, it would ruin, they would have annihilated the whole bunch. But that's a ferocious tide. And but we got there, and I don't know, had several enjoyable evenings, pissed around with the people, and I know they enjoyed us. I think I even went to Oriental Services at one time.
Oh.
I don't know what that, but there's no need, you know, when you're just a kid, you don't know anything and about things like that. But we had a tank. You put a tank on a rail up there. The little old rails are like that. This small rail line, not like ours. Ours about that big, you know.
Right,
Bigger,
right.
I guess the rail about that far, but Korean is short with
Yes.
narrow gauge. And boy, everybody wanted to ride with the tanks up to the line. They picked Baker companies to be over be in the perimeter they had up there for Admiral Joy. Admiral Joy was the admiral that met with the Chinese. He's the man that was the spear of this. And so they'd meet with him every day, and they were afraid because they just had a big fist fight up there over that. They were afraid that the Chinese would get them and carry them back up in China. And we wanted, so they put our Baker company up there, supposedly, in case this happened, you know, we could rush in there and pick them up. And they did, and I mean, they did not, and we didn't have to. However, we would go out on patrols and all things, and that's the time of my life when I was over there, when the foot mines and all that. But anyway, I don't know how much of this y'all want to hear the whole thing. Is that it?
Well, we have a couple of other questions that we want to ask.
Okay.
Sharing your experiences about the war. You have here asking about, there's a couple of other questions we wanted to ask about, asking if you were actually on the front line. You know, were tanks, you know, your particular tank group, were you guys ever on the front line, or was that, you know, like, where were you in terms of actually being on?
We were the spear.
The spear.
Head
Okay.
off the operation normally is tanks.
Okay.
And I was on the front line many, many times. A lot of tankers don't have these, you know, these purple hearts. They, you know, you're going to either live or die in a tank. I mean,
Right.
if they don't get something in a tank just a little bit. I mean, you got a bunch of steel around you.
Yeah.
And yes, I was on the line, and they paid me for 10 months, as my record indicates, for combat duty. Is how much I drew for combat duty, and I didn't say I had that much. They said I did.
Wow. Wow. That's a
And
long time.
however, that combat duty is kind of tricky. Not all of it's on the front line. Within 3 miles of the front line is the way it is. But we would be called out many times to go up there. Every time there was they wanted to go on a patrol or something, they wanted the tankers, naturally, you know, backing them up. They needed us quite often. And but I guess that's about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. You also have over here too. It says, if you saw combat, how did you feel? You know, obviously you know that you saw combat.
I see what you're talking about. How did it affect me?
Yeah. Well, and again, you know, assuming that you. No. Assume that if you witnessed casualties or you witnessed destruction, you know, seeing those types of things, you know, in terms of what you saw and, you know, on the front line, can you describe what that was like?
Okay, I got you. Well, let's see, I think the first time I went out, we were on a patrol, and that's the first time I'd gone out, and I noticed that my smell instinct and all of my, you know, my adrenaline flows so easily. And when you're going out on a patrol and you know you're going against the enemy and you've got the infantry with you and everything, you feel good. You're up in that big rolling tank, you know, and you feel like you can take anything. You'd rather take about any of them on, but there's a certain degree of, you know, of reluctance or anxiety that goes along with it that's overridden by this fact of being happy of all things, that you're getting in the show, you're getting in the ball game, You know, this is it. This is what you've trained for. And I don't know how else to put it, but nevertheless, as far as the gore is concerned, you're saved from a lot of that because you're in a tank. However, I saw a lot of it where we had blown up bunkers and people had blown all to pieces and things like that. One hill, and we used to go on foot patrol also when we were in reserve. We'd have to go on foot patrol. And I've seen, there was one particular hill that had dead Chinese all over that thing. I mean, it was loaded with, they had on brand new tennis shoes. One guy says, I believe those shoes will fit me. I think I'm going to try them on. Of course, he was nuts. But nevertheless, you know, those guys still had on their uniforms and everything, you know, laying there out on the ground, and well, they'd really been mowed down. I mean, they were just almost piled up. But I've seen a lot of that, and I've seen them carry off the dead of Americans in these 6x trucks. And you see a lot of things like that that are very uncomfortable, and you don't like to recall too much, but life is what it is.
Right. Steering course. And you also had here too, were you a POW? Were you a POW, Burt?
No, I never was.
Okay.
They would have killed me anyway if I would have been, I expect.
Did you receive any medals or honors for your service?
Well, I received a combat ribbon with
Excellent.
3 stars on it, as you can see.
Yes.
And which that means, you know, 3 not necessarily battles as far as Korea was concerned, but it was over there in the spring, fall, and winter. Really, I should have had 4 because I saw 2 winters over there almost.
Wow.
And I did receive the ribbon for it. The Army gives them a little, you know, badge and rifle there or something. I don't think you even have to have combat to get that thing with the Army. But Marines, they told us when I was in boot camp, we don't give away medals, a whole bunch of medals. We don't have very many. We don't need them. They know what we are. You know?
I know what you accomplished.
That's right. They know what we do. So,
So how did it feel to receive your ribbon?
to what?
How did it feel to receive a ribbon like that?
How did it feel to receive your awards?
Well, I didn't. You don't do it that way. I didn't receive any awards. Nobody gets any awards till they get home. You know, I got a little set of ribbons there, and I didn't have this many because I only had 3 when I got out, and then they've awarded these others since then. I only had 3 ribbons and 1 star. That's FAR Korea. But now we have, let's see, I got 1 star. No, that's not on there. 1 star FAR Korea, silver-looking star. I don't have it on there yet.
Did you earn the Silver Star?
Yeah, no, I didn't earn the Silver Star.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
but I have that for Korea itself, and then the 3 bronze stars, which is what these are. These are 3 bronze stars for your operations.
Okay.
You fall, spring, and summer.
Okay.
And but I don't, I couldn't. I'm not. Didn't win any accolades or medals other than that, other than being there. I was just a common Marine, you know.
Right.
The guy that does the fighting, like, these guys in there 20, 30 years, I mean, they're normally the ones that fight the wars and the ones that are killed are the reserves and the ones that volunteer for it, you know. They don't get the guys that are full-timers.
Yeah.
But,
Were you ever wounded?
no, sir, I wasn't wounded at all, thank the Lord. And if you get wounded in tanks, like I said, you're not going to get just wounded a little bit. You're going to really get it. You're going to be hit.
When and where were you when the war ended?
Where was I? When it ended? Well, it was still going on when I left. You see what it is? I was at the 11th draft. Korea was different. They didn't call it a war. They didn't want to call it a war because we would have to win it. And I wish I couldn't find it, but I've got one. And if you want to get it, get a copy of it, I will. Where I signed away my rights to fire unless I was fired upon or told to fire.
Oh.
So we went into there with one arm tied behind us. And that's the way these guys are doing now. You know, it's a shame.
Yeah.
You can't win a war like that.
Yeah.
You know, they got to let you go. You know, if you need to do something, you can't ask permission.
Right.
And that's that's what they really put us in. And
That happens with all people in service. I mean, that happens with a lot of people in service, you know.
Yeah.
from a military to civil duty, you know, from civil services as well. I understand that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, I just went in there for the duration, and that's what I signed up for. So they gave me a choice to sign up for 4 years, which 4 years at that age, you know, I thought was a lifetime, and or I could stay, you know, for indefinitely, and I thought Korea was going to be over before I could get in. You know,
Right.
wouldn't have to worry about anything, but it wasn't.
so when you said fall, spring, and summer, was that
And winter. You
and
got
winter?
winter,
Okay,
yeah.
so then that was
4
50. Was that 50,
I was
51?
over there in 51. I went over there in summer 51.
Okay, okay.
Summer 51, and then the fall of 50. Well, it was in the fall of 51 was, and then the winter of 51, and then the spring of 51.
Okay.
It'd be my primary times, and it wasn't the fighting. They were still killing, you know, 500-600 a month or something like that over there. Then there were more men killed in the second half of the Korean War than there was in the first half.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know, you know, but there
Yeah.
was.
Right.
That's just a fact. I guess they could kill more. When we switched coast, didn't anybody know anything about, you know, where the landmines were? And we did have one tanker that got his leg blowed off on a landmine because they, you know, was out there walking around. They didn't give us a map of mines, you know, where the mines were. And the snipers, you know, they were just like shooting ducks. You know, there's another Marine walking around to get him, you know. But they're supposed to tell the other bunch coming in what to watch for. But
Right.
they didn't do that.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
I don't know that I have yet. When I came in, you know, I'm still working on it.
Have you remained in contact with your fellow veterans?
Yeah, there were 3 of us, well, really 4 to start with, but there were 3 of us, and one of them died about a year ago. Lewis and Eddie were brothers, and, you know, we were all real close, and he died, and now Lewis, I went down there to see him on the coast there, Lewis Stevenson, and he was in engineers, and Eddie was in the air wing. He was way back there in the rear. Of course, I kind of these people in the Air Corps start telling about it. You know, I kind of laugh about it. You know, well, they was far back. They didn't know there was a war going on, nothing else. But anyway, he was in there. One of them was in there. But Lewis came up there to see me on the line, and we caught him. We were right about 2.5 miles, 2 miles, I think, from the front. He's in reserve, and Lewis said, "Let's go back to the front. I want to see where they're fighting this one time." And I said, "Well, Lewis, we get in trouble." And, "Oh, Lord," I said, "we can catch a truck up there and we can get back in no time." Okay. We got up there to the top of the punch bowl, you know, and looked over there. And sure enough, they were really smoking up there where they were fighting. Lewis said, "Let's go on down there." I said, "No, I don't believe." I said, "Well, they get us or not. I don't want to be run up for down here on the hill where we're not supposed to be." I said, "We're not supposed to leave like this. I don't have permission. You do." But I said, "I got to get back down there." But as a matter of fact, he came to see me twice, I think.
Wow.
But he's in the old folks' home down there now. Lewis is about 4 years younger than I am. He was in engineers and fighting. My Lord, he was fighting. He's something else. He sure was. He didn't care. They're Bohemians, both of them. And they were something. Big old boys.
That's funny.
Have you revisited Korea?
Haven't did what?
Have you revisited Korea?
No, they got that deal where we can, and I hadn't, you know, my son wants us to go over there. He was over there a little while, you know, in the 80s when he was in there. And I told him, I said, "I don't know whether I'm ready to go back over there or not. I guess I could from what old the preacher said about it today. You know, he was telling how good it was and everything. But there's something about it. You smell Korea when you go over there. If you still, you know, if it's still like that, you can smell it at sea when you get close to that place. I'll tell you. But evidently, they know. We think, incidentally, nobody ever said this, but this is what we think. This is the last war that we have ever won since World War II. And the reason we say that is because the Koreans have readjusted everything. They've come over here and they've accepted our language and everything else, and goodness knows, look what they've done. And they couldn't have done that if we wouldn't have gone over there.
Without you. That's
No
right.
other country does that I know of. They tried to with the Vietnamese, but they hadn't done anything. And they give us a Christmas dinner every year at that big church down at Richardson.
It's amazing.
And
Deserving.
but it's really something.
What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
Is what?
What are some life lessons that you've learned from the
Oh.
military service?
I learned to follow instructions a little better. Yeah, and I don't really know. You know, life is. I've learned that life is very fragile, and that people can die right in front of you, and it's interesting to see how life transgresses through one period of time and another. And as long as we keep our head on right and stay right with the Lord, but we can just enjoy all of it. If we don't, we got a problem. But I think that's the only reason I'm still here.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, I think that they're too lackadaisical about going to war. I mean, we need to either go to war or not go to war. One, I think this is a terrible thing to do the way they're doing that, because the politicians thought if they, as long as they don't say war, you're not entitled to any of the benefits, anything. See, they didn't approve us for VA benefits until we'd been out. I think about a year, till I'd been out about a year. And because it wasn't a war. They didn't say it was a war. They said it was a conflict. Yeah. And and this is the problem. They've taken words and changed them around to things that are not, you know, Brother Webster didn't mean for them to be changed to. You know, when you lose that many men and everything, that's something else. But nevertheless, that's life.
Did you receive any GI Bill benefits?
Oh, yes.
How did that impact your life?
Well, I tried to go back to college again and pick it all up again, but I never could quite put it together. I wasn't interested in it. I couldn't keep my mind on it. And I don't know. I just couldn't get it. I got to drinking a good bit and wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and a lot of other things. Of course, I'd like to change all that, but I don't know really why. I mean, it wouldn't help or make it any less anymore. Maybe it made more of a man out of me not to do it. The potter can't, or the clay can't argue with the potter, can he? Right. The potter's gonna make what he wants to, and that's the way you need to look at life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, but it's, you know, I have PTSD. Are you aware of that? We had, that's the reason, I think, now you know right from wrong. They can't say that that's not an excuse for breaking the law or something, is to have PTSD. People try to bring that out. That's wrong, in my opinion. Right. And I still go to class up there. I go up there and meet with my brothers, and I don't know how many of them are gone now. But you're not nuts, but you do have some problems. Yeah. You know, I know right from wrong and everything, and but it's life, you know. But it shook me up pretty bad the first time we were shelled. I'll tell you. I don't know what it does to you. It turns on a little light or something.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who see this interview?
Man, I'd like to see you all get with the program here and get this world straightened out. You got lots to do. You got a lot of time to do it in. I should say a short time to do it in. But you all have the ability, and you've got these fine teachers like the one sitting with us here to help you guide the way, and you can really change this world around at a good time. We don't need to be out here killing one another all the time and all that business. We don't gain anything by it, and it's just a shame that we can't get things going better. And people that lie to you, these politicians, I'll tell you, I don't know what to think about them. But anyway, we have to live with it and accept it because they're in charge of things and they're over us. So, but I have, I don't know, I'll probably be beyond answering your question. Go ahead and ask the next one.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or that should be added to this interview?
Is there any what? Attitude I need to discuss?
Is there anything that you feel like we haven't discussed?
In my...
Yeah, is there anything else that you would like to add before we close out the interview?
Well, there's one thing I guess I should tell you about the time. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, I was up on a line over there at Penn Moon Young. I'm Penn Moon Young, and they're supposed to send you back in reserve 2 weeks before you to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't send me because they needed a loader to go out on some firing problems. Well, they chose me naturally, and I had a loader on the lieutenant's tank. And so we go out there, and the infantry meet us on the tanks and everything. We go out there, and of course the Chinese up there, you get out of the parallel, you can fire and all that, you know. So we went out there, and everything was all right. We got out there, I think, fired a couple of rounds. There wasn't too much going on, but we had somebody blowed up one of these pylons, these big pylons that they're leading out from these dams and things, you know, the electric lines. And somebody had blown it up, and it got it across where we had gone out, this little trail, because these are kind of hills too. Well, I had to get out and move that. We got to get out and move it. We're not going to be able to get around that thing. We got to get out and move it. Somebody's going to have to get out. Well, let's see. I'll call and get the assistant driver and loader to get out there. I said, Lord have mercy. So I have to get out there. And he said it twice. I never said it twice. I wanted to get out of that thing in 2 weeks. So anyway, he said it twice. I just slapped that latch open, you know, hit that thing, knocked that latch open. You know, I was out of that thing and with 1 foot on the tank. I don't think I hit that tank twice before I was on the ground. Because I knew there were a lot of landmines around. And that shut me. I just still wasn't going to even make it home. Here it is 2 weeks before. But anyway, we moved it. I don't know how we lifted that thing, he and I both. I really don't. I look at it every time I go under one, I think about that. That's something. That's one bad thing about this. These recalls, you have them all your life. I mean, even the rest of your life's nothing compared to the time that you spent there. You still carry it. But anyway, it was supposed to. We wouldn't do it. You're not going to do without it. One day we will.
That's amazing.
So, how's going to take up your time this evening?
You're not taking up our time. We just want to thank you.